All right, there we go. Good morning, my friends, fellow gaming enthusiasts, gaming gurus, and game masters, and dungeon masters, and master enthusiasts, and what have you, and what for. As you may know, or don't care, or indifferent to, GM Bloodworth and Rob Gusterson and I are working on getting a Twilight 2000 play-by-post up and running. I have apparently 7 players, 5 of which I've yet to really hear from or see anything from. I'm not saying they're not there, but I'm trying to figure it out. Anyway, there's some unique stuff, some different stuff when it comes to Twilight 2000. And one of those things, in this case, I've yet to see this replicated in another game system. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist in another game system. I'm only saying that this one here is the only one I've personally seen. It's dealing with the motivations of non-player characters. Now, it acknowledged that you're going to run across a lot of NPCs that we really don't need to know their motivations, other than basic concept of survival or just trying to get through their day. Whether they be merchants or field hands, or in this case, refugees fleeing the conflict. You're going to find refuge in this type of post-apocalyptic world, or in the process of being an apocalyptic world, which is kind of an interesting concept by itself now that I think about it. The truth is, it's not a post-apocalyptic, because that implies that the thing happened some time ago and now everybody's the Road Warrior genre, for example, that is a post-apocalyptic scenario. Things went south sometime before, whether it be a couple decades or 100 years or whatever. Gamma World is a post-apocalyptic world, right? This is a apocalyptic world in progress. We're going to watch through the process of the modules over the next next year or two, based off of the information I've read, the modern society slide into a hole real deep and real fast, and it basically comes apart at the seams and reverts to a neo-feudal state in some aspects. And things just continue to get worse. And not just for the players. So, sometimes it's good to know. And I've always felt this particular element of the game was interesting, because I'd like to have had something similar to this to apply to other NPCs, because, once again, as I said, perhaps I should have renamed myself the Lazy GM, because I like to utilize the plethora of works that have gone before by a lot of people who put a lot of effort into thinking about this sort of stuff. So, in this case, like I said, I'll get to it. Can't really read it there for you too much yourself, but I'll read it for you. They've attributed base motivations and base drives to a deck of cards. So you can truly roll a random motivation and for an NPC, and it says in here. Variety non-player characters will be encountered in the course of the adventures. These are the characters which the referee will play either in cooperation with or in opposition to the players. Motivation. In many cases, the motivations of NPCs are either obvious or unimportant. The enemy soldier, the merchant in the bazaar, the common field hand, the general range of background characters do not require the referee to determine the motivation. In truth, it doesn't really require us to do more than give a passing knowledge that they're there, and maybe some base hit points or stats in case there's some pending encounter. The odds are really good that most of these people, if they cross the player characters in some way, or the bad NPCs in some way, and somebody gets killed, there's no real point in having a whole lot of depth to that NPC, because they're just a variant on the red shirt from Star Trek. You're familiar with the red shirts, right? Yeah. Isn't that what a lot of NPCs are at the end of the day anyway? Okay. So it says, motivation. In many cases, the motivations of NPCs are either obvious or unimportant. an enemy soldier, a merchant in the character, blah, blah, blah. To determine the motivation of an NPC, draw 2 cards from the standard deck of playing cards. The highest value card is the NPC's primary motivation. The other is his secondary motivation. Particular motive is determined by the suit of cards. The values are classified as low, 2, 3, 4, the middle 5, 6, or 7, high 8, 9, or 10. Aces and face cards are the special results explained later. So, in this case, clubs, the suit of clubs represents violence. The NPC has a greater likelihood of reacting with violence than most people. At low levels, this indicates the NPC is not frightened or intimidated by threats. Middle level NPC is aggressive and inclined to view violence as a preferred means of resolving disputes. At high levels, NPCs love a good fight and either is or wants to be a warrior. Even high violence rating does not, however, necessarily indicate that an NPC is brutal or a bully. For example, an NPC with a high violence level and a high fellowship level could be described as friendly, good-natured, loyal, a good man to have with you in a fight. Right? That's kind of NPCs you want as part of your group. Because, if you think about it, as you well know, anybody that's viewing this stuff, for the most part, are veteran, experienced game masters, GMs, whatever you call yourself. And you know that there are NPCs there are foes, there are neutrals, and there are friends or allies. And so sometimes we flush out a player character group with friendly NPCs to give extra muscle and abilities and things like this. We have the occasional encounters with friendly NPCs. And then we have the neutrals. That's the lion's share of the world around the player characters. They're just going about their lives as best they can, and the only reason they're an NPC at all is because your characters need to have an encounter or have one with them, whether they initiated it or the GM did. And then there's the foes, and there's the thug group, street soldier, whatever you want to call them. And most part, we don't need a lot of information on them. They're the black shirts. They're going to take it in the end, and their point is just to help move the story along and give moving targets that occasionally shoot back to the good guys. And then there are the boss hats, or the evil hats, or the black hats, or the leadership of the NPCs, the primary foe, and their hench people, men and women. And those are more complicated non-player characters. Generally, they are our foes. And this sort of system allows us to generally figure their motivations out without having to reach deep into ourselves and try to attribute to so many different NPCs and motivations and reasons for how they react to given situations. This just speeds that up, makes things simpler, in my opinion. Just my opinion. So in this case, clubs represents violence, diamonds, wealth, hearts, fellowship, spades, power. Well, wealth pretty much doesn't need described, and I don't think, and we've already talked about violence. Fellowship, pretty straightforward. Power, the NPC seeks personal power and influence. At low levels, this manifests mostly as a boastfulness and desire to impress the NPC peers. At middle levels, indicates a wish to position a real responsibility in an organization. High levels indicates a desire to manipulate and control people around him. Now, as players and as people, we recognize those in all categories. Most of your street thugs and grunts as street soldiers and bad guys and good guys and neutrals who are blowhards or the old man on the corner seat just always talking about the glory days, that kind of stuff fits within that category, right? Just like the evil genius who wants to run an entire evil empire fits the upper category. Then we have our special cards. Aces and face cards are special cards, each with its own special meaning. The special card is drawn, it is automatically the primary motivation or most prominent characteristic of an NPC. If 2 special cards are drawn, the NPC has 2 competing primary motivations or dominant characteristics, meaning the special cards are shown below. Isn't that an interesting concept? So it's plausible that while you're setting up using the system, you can actually get a foe that has conflicting motivations. And this can be either good or bad, or manipulated by the player characters to some degree, depending on how you want to play it out, or how deft and savvy the players are, if they catch into it. I mean, as a GM, do you outright say, here's the motivations? You don't, this isn't for the players. This is for you, the GM. And if the players can figure that out, bully for them, because it gives them leverage or tools or advantages that they didn't have prior to that, right? So the ace heart ace is justice, heart king is honor, heart queen is love, heart jack is wisdom, club ace war leader, club king brutal, club queen stubborn, club jack murderer. The diamond ace is generosity, the diamond king is selfishness. I've already admitted, if I get a diamond king and I get a club, and then I get a diamond king as well, I've got an individual who's inclined to various levels of violence, but at the same time is quite generous. Can be very generous in meting out that violence when he chooses, or she chooses, or can be a very generous individual until crossed. Right? Real quick to get a good motivation for an NPC, even a random one right there. And then we have Diamond Queen is lustful, Diamond Jack coward, Spade Ace is charismatic, Spade King is deceitful, Spade Queen is ruthless, Spade Jack is pompous. Now, going back for a minute, I could roll a Diamond Jack, which says this individual is a coward, and roll the clubs for 10 of clubs, which means they're extremely violent. So they are a coward until pushed into a corner, or somehow feeling thwarted or abused in some manner. Then they react in an extremely violent way, or they're capable of great violence when your back's turned. They're the ones that are most likely going to put a bullet in the back of your head at the first opportunity, because they feel safe that you're not going to somehow confront them. So, it's an interesting set of rules. It's just a variation or variant of figuring out the motivations of an NPC, and it's quite interesting, I think. And a type of NPCs, for ease of play in the game, all NPCs are divided into 4 categories: novice, experienced, veteran, and elite. Each category is a fixed skill level and attribute level. This can be varied by the referee for special NPCs, so on and so forth. They're giving all the base information. So a novice has skill levels at 20%, attribute levels average 12, coolness is 6. An elite NPC would have a skill level average of 60%, attribute levels are 8, and coolness of 0. So these are cool cookies that are capable of doing some great stuff in the act of defending or attacking or pushing their agenda or what have you. So it's a very short section. It's only one, it's front and back. It's one page front and back, but it gives such a wealth of potential creation information for random NPCs and intentional NPCs. It's also critical when you read the bios on the NPCs that are already in the modules, and you get their take on it. So you'll see what their card draws were, and then you can go reference that and understand what their motivations are without needing half a page of bio for it. I just think it's an interesting extra that can be utilized. Like a lot of rules, it's not mandatory. You don't have to use it. You can choose to not use it. I like the idea. It's an interesting concept. Till next time, game on.